Picasso once said, "There are painters who transform the sun into a yellow spot, but there are others who, thanks to their art and their intelligence, transform a yellow spot into the sun." This striving for colour to mean more is hugely evident in our first art mashup of the new year, in which we splice together Barry Keoghan as Oliver Quick in the recent movie Saltburn, and the wonderfully vibrant yellow scale by Frantisek Kupka. Coldplay were right, it was indeed all yellow, and during these bleak grey days in the UK, immersing ourselves in the warm world of Saltburn and Kupka is a welcome escape. So don't lose your mind, as the tagline to the film suggests. Let's get lost in the paint and tones and get to work. Okay, so welcome back to Phil Galloway Draws, and a happy new year to all of you. We've got Artrage Vitae open right now for this mashup painting, and I've set the canvas up to quite a rough canvas for this one, because the textures of the Kupka painting shone through the paint, and you could really, this painting is not only about colour and kind of pose, it's all about the textures as well, and I wanted the canvas to shine through and to show that roughness. So I set the canvas up, and you can have a look in my Carmi Leyendecker previous video to see about canvas setups, but I coloured it to be not white. I wanted it to be slightly darker, because you can see in the top left of the Kupka's self-portrait there that he had obviously used a rough canvas or used a wash on it first to make it that little bit darker colour. So to be as kind of close to the original as possible, I did the same. So here we are, we've got our canvas set up to approximately the right size. I've made it a little bit taller to allow for the antlers of the character to fit in. And we brought in our reference images there of the yellow scale by Frantisek Kupka, his unbelievable self-portrait, which has been a favourite of mine since I remember seeing it when I was at school in my art class, and it's always just stuck with me as just being, it's unbelievably smug and cool, and the colours, and it's always entranced me, and for some reason just stuck in my head. And then on the other side we've got Barry Keoghan, he pronounces it, I would have said something else, Keoghan, but we'll stick with what he knows best, really, who played Oliver Quick in the divisive, I'll say for now, Saltburn movie. So we'll talk more about Kupka and Saltburn and why we've mashed these two up, because again, like with all my videos, there are links between the two. It's not just me being an idiot and throwing together things that I like. There is always a basis for why we kind of splice things together. So hopefully these videos can, you know, teach a little bit about the artist, a little bit about the film or TV series, but overall learn a little bit more than we started with, and enjoy the process, and hopefully maybe inspire people to have a go in the style of the artist. So yeah, we'll come back to those a little bit later, but as you can see now, I've kind of set my paint layer to be thicker than I usually would, and you can see on Artrage the way the paint builds up. You can see on the left hand side there alongside his face, the more you kind of stroke the brush strokes, the paint piles up. It's wonderful to kind of see it happen. Now originally this artwork, my first video for this year was meant to be a kind of beginner's first try of the new Rebel 7 Pro art program, and I was going to try and paint that in this, but alas, for some reason it was playing weird as I was trying to record the screen, and I wasn't able to zoom out, and so we've come back to the old faithful Artrage Vitae, which again I love using, as you know from my previous videos, and you should definitely give it a go. And I think it does an admirable job of trying to convey the texture and the paint flow that Kupka, you know, effortlessly got in his 1907 painting and self-portrait. So I've got the paint chunkily on the brush, and I've set my thickness quite wide because it's a reasonably big canvas I'm working on. And as you can see, I'm just keeping it loose. Now, I had done quite a detailed sketch of the character Oliver Quick, but in the pose of Kupka's self-portrait. And usually what I've done, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I would overlay a pencil kind of transparency so I can see where I'm going, and it saves a bit of time. It's a little bit of a cheat, a little bit of a hack to get that kind of accuracy, to make it really look like someone. But I didn't want to do that with this. The Kupka painting is so loose and fresh, and the strokes are so kind of, you can imagine him standing back with a laden paintbrush and just slopping it on there and finding his form as he goes. And I didn't want to be constrained by a very, very tight pencil drawing. So as you can see, I ditched the pencil drawing. I sketched out a very, very not very detailed sketch using the pastels on Artrage. I mean, it doesn't really look like Barry Keoghan at all at the moment, but it's got the form, the size is about right, the hand position, the chair, and that's all I really wanted to kind of go on. And I would work on the details using the paint kind of in an alla prima fashion straight on the canvas as I go, and you'll see as the paint layers build up, so too do the details. So we'll speed the painting up a little bit now, because no one wants to sit through nearly 5 hours of me waffling on and painting. The painting took about that long to kind of do. But I've painted it on the Surface Studio 2 with the big screen on my desk. And it's funny that I actually turned the screen up. It can tilt down flat, or it can be used like a normal desktop PC. I actually had it halfway for most of painting this and held this stylus like a brush more towards the back. And as you can see with the kind of very loose strokes, I wasn't worried about being too accurate, particularly at this stage. I just wanted to get those unctuous yellows in, just get the shape kind of being built up, and try and follow Kupka's random strokes, which the more you look at them, the more it kind of builds up the folds of his satin kind of dressing gown that he's wearing, and you see on his face the kind of lurid greens and the kind of horrible sickly blues and yellows and purples within them. He's put them on so chunkily over each other, but yet dragged the paint around, so it's kind of created this mishmash of colours, which, like as the title says, the yellow scale. I mean, the predominance of the painting is yellow, and we'll discuss a little bit more about kind of Kupka and his history and his obsession with colour, and why it was so important to him. But really, it's nice to work loose. A lot of my work that I get asked to do for my kind of commissions and client work is very tight. Everyone wants it to look exactly like the footballer or exactly like the music person, celebrity or something like that. Whereas on this one, yes, I wanted it to look like Barry there, and I wanted it to look, roughly like Kupka's painting, but it's nice to be expressive, and it's nice to throw the paint on sometimes, isn't it? So we'll just leave me to continue chipping away at the paint there. Just to note that I used the same thickness of paint pretty much all the way through this first section, and quite a lot of the kind of second bit, really. It was only much later on when I took the depth of the paint down and the loading of the paintbrush down in the settings on the left hand side, and stiffened the paintbrush up just to create those kind of little flicks, the little edge of paint around the kind of edges of his jacket, and which, if you've loaded the brush up, you wouldn't really get unless you've really dragged the brush around the canvas. So like with all my previous videos and my outlook on art and art history as a whole, really, I like to chat a little bit about the artist, the painting, a bit of the history, the context, and also obviously why we've chosen to kind of do this mixed media of different imagery and splice them together. I think it's important. I think it's important to learn from these things. We can learn a lot about their techniques, but also about the history and what made them paint in that way. It's an odd format, I suppose, but it seems to be quite popular. The videos are doing quite well, and let me know if you want me to change anything, or if you have an idea for a future artist or mashup, or you think I'm completely insane. Just let me know in the comments. I always answer as many as I can. And I like to think of it as maybe a bit of an art history show and art learning show for people who don't usually watch art history shows. Maybe that's the kind of the way of looking at it. But we'll talk a little bit about Frantisek Kupka and a bit about Saltburn, and we'll go from there. So the Washington Post, in researching this, the Washington Post described the yellow scale by Frantisek Kupka as one of the most original self-portraits ever created. It hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in Houston and was painted in 1907. Painting, it's unbelievably striking. You can't deny. Look at it, even just sat smaller on the screen there. It just glows off the screen. It's one of my favourites, and it really kind of challenges the viewer to ask the question, is the painting more about the colour, or is it about Kupka himself, and what is he thinking? The book he's holding, there's mystery about that. I had a little Easter egg to the book that you'll see later on, which we'll talk about. The cigarette, the way he's slumped back, he's lazy and smug at the same time, and that kind of juxtaposes against the sunny intensity of the yellows, his kind of green skin that looks so sickly, and the pale blues down his wrist completely oppose the glowing pillow behind his head, and it's uncomfortable yet harmonious. And the more I learned about Kupka and his thinkings, it kind of makes sense why it's like that, and the result is it's beautiful and intriguing in equal measure. So I suppose before we talk a bit about Kupka and his style, we'll go on a bit about his history in a minute and his personal life maybe. Colour theory is so important to Kupka, it would be kind of remiss of me not to even just do a layman's terms of what colour theory. And basically colour theory is the study of how colours work together, and how they affect our emotions and perceptions as we view them. It's like a toolbox for artists, really. A good way of thinking about it, and for designers and creators to help them choose the right colours for projects. Colour theory enables you to pick colours that go well together and convey the right mood. I mean, that's the simple way of looking at it, isn't it? There's complementary colours, there's colours that sit well, that don't sit well, and every colour invokes a mood in the viewer, and if you pair two up together that kind of don't sit well together, it might create quite a jarring experience, and that might be what the artist exactly wants. Now, Kupka himself talked about wanting to bathe this painting in a single scale of colour, but it's not just colour theory at play. Much like the colours used in cinematography in Saltburn, there's more going on than just simple colour theory. The colour means more, and it means as much as the protagonists we view, with all their kind of sickly faults and foibles present to see, but with the hidden characteristics and traits that are woven into the paint and the celluloid. They're more than just the colour that's on there. Like I said before, the juxtaposition of his skin colour to the yellow. Why is that like that? It's more than just colour theory, there's more going on, and I think that's what he invites the viewer to think about. His smug conceit on his face there, sitting brashly, allowing us into this private moment. It very much is echoed in Saltburn's use of intimate moments, which are bathed in various palettes of light, conveying tones of mystery, vibrancy, repulsion, and intrigue. Now, that's very true, but I'm not going to give away too many spoilers, but there are moments of kind of voyeuristic moments in Saltburn which are linked with colours, and the viewer is allowed into these kind of perverse moments, and some of them, trying to be quite shocking. And we'll discuss Saltburn and whether it achieves this, and some people love it, some people hate it. It very much has split opinion. But there is no denying that the use of colour, the palette, the setting completely, adds to the characteristics, and it's a visual treat. And I think you can kind of go on a lot about Kupka and what he's trying to achieve here, but the fact of the matter is it's a beautiful painting, and the colours used within there, it is more than colour theory. It's not just a question of those look pretty together. He is trying to make the viewer think a little bit more about what this character is about, and I love it for that. It's mysterious, and I've liked a lot of Kupka's self-portraits. I remember seeing another one of him with a beard when I was younger, and I was intrigued by that as well. But this one just stands out. I don't know what it is. I think it's his smugness and that kind of lazy arm holding the cigarette. What's he reading? All these kind of mysteries, which are there for all to see. So, a little bit about Frantisek Kupka. For those who want to know and want to find out a little bit more, I heartily recommend checking out his other work. It changed vastly over his career, and it's worth checking out. So, Frantisek Kupka, he was a Czech-born French painter and graphic artist who was one of the pioneers of abstract art in the 20th century. He was also a co-founder of the Orphism movement, which was a movement that explored the harmony and rhythm of colours and shapes. He was born in 1871 in Opokno. Pardon my pronunciation if you are from that town in eastern Bohemia, which is now part of the Czech Republic. And he showed an early talent for drawing and painting and studied at the Academy of Fine Arts in Prague and Vienna. He was influenced heavily by symbolism, and a style that used images and symbols to express its ideas and emotions. In 1984, he moved to Paris and became a successful illustrator for books and magazines and newspapers. And he attended the Académie Julian and the École des Beaux-Arts, where he learned from Jean-Pierre Laurens, a renowned academic painter. He experimented with different styles and techniques such as Impressionism, Fauvism, and Cubism. So Kupka himself, he was really interested in spirituality, philosophy, and science. And he was into reading about occultism, Buddhism, theosophy, and he believed that art could reveal the hidden meaning and order of the universe, and that colour and form could invoke emotions and sensations in the viewer. Again, linking to Saltburn and its use of colour to invoke emotions. Just a little aside before we discuss that a little bit later. He experimented a lot in this field, and he wanted to explore the connection as well between music and painting. And a lot of his work he called kind of fugue or symphony and things like that. So around 1910, Kupka began to create abstract paintings, which obviously came a little bit later than this portrait painting. And you can see in those work the colours and lines and geometrical shapes. They were just energy and movement and harmony, and he experimented with optical effects and colour contrasts, and he just really went down the abstract colour route, and they're fantastic to see. And you could see that this painting was a kind of stepping stone for him from his earlier work, which were a bit more kind of simple and less abstract, if you way. This is kind of a bridge between the two, the kind of uniform colour across the canvas and the expressive lines used. He exhibited his abstract paintings with Delaunay and Deschamps, and amongst others, and his career was met with curiosity, admiration, and criticism in equal measure, really. Some critics really liked his originality, others dismissed his work as kind of chaotic and incomprehensible. During World War I, Kupka served as a volunteer in the French army, but he was wounded and discharged in 1915. And he continued to paint and exhibit his abstract works, but also by that stage returned to figurative painting. And again, have a look through some of his back kind of catalogue of work. It's an intriguing body, and there's a lot to kind of get your teeth into and see. And like I said, he's not a very well-known painting in the kind of mainstream circles. I think most people, if you said, Frantisek Kupka, they might not know, but they might recognise one of his paintings, or they might have seen this smug fellow before somewhere along the lines, or even they might just kind of get a feeling of it that they have seen it before just by the tone, and maybe it might have influenced something else. Kupka died in 1957 in in Puteaux, a suburb of Paris, where he lived and worked for the most of his life. And he left behind a rich and diverse kind of body of work, like I said, and it spans from realism to abstraction. There's something there for everyone, really. He was visionary in his technique and his exploration of the possibilities of colour, form and space. I love this painting. I've always loved this painting. It totally reflects his personality, and it's the kind of painting I want to paint myself for my original work. Really kind of getting into the kind of colour theory, but also the emotion. And that's what painting can do, and that's what movies can do. So as we go on to talk about Saltburn, I think it's when you watch films with colour theory in mind, you start to see it play, and it's not just blues for morbid or morose, it's not just reds for angry. There's more going on than just that. It's a complex thing, our emotions, and I think certain artists particularly get it, and certain directors and cinematographers get it very much too. But hey, that's enough about Kupka. I know a lot of people might be coming to this video because it's of Saltburn, because it has become very, very popular amongst some circles and very much talked about on Twitter and social media, etc. So if you're joining me and you don't care about Kupka, I'm sorry you've just sat through the last 20 minutes of me waffling on about the painting. But here's the bit for you. So stick around and we'll discuss more and how these two kind of great things really in different ways have kind of clashed together in this video. So a little bit of background about Saltburn, if you don't know it. This is going to include no spoilers. Try not to do any spoilers anyway. It will just, be a brief description and why I've chosen to kind of do this mashup, etc. So Saltburn, it was released last year, towards the end of last year, and it's described as a black comedy psychological thriller, which I'm not quite sure about that description really, because I didn't find it hilarious, although some of the characters, particularly Richard E. Grant, were quite funny. I didn't find it very kind of thrilling, and it wasn't very scary or anything, but that's the description they've given it. It was written, directed and co-produced by Emerald Fennell, who you might have seen in The Crown, etc., who has done a few other good movies, and it stars, as we've mentioned, Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, Rosamund Pike, Richard E. Grant, Alison Oliver and Archie Madekwe, sorry about the pronunciation. And the film is based on the novel by the same name by Ian McEwan. Now, Saltburn, the movie, it centres on the main character, Oliver Quick, played by Barry Keoghan. He's a newly arrived student at Oxford University who's trying to break into the higher societies and the kind of higher echelons of class there. He lives outside Liverpool, he's a Scouse lad, and he doesn't really fit in amongst the kind of posh boys and girls there. And he swiftly develops an obsession with his classmate called Felix Catton, who's played by Jacob Elordi, who in turn kind of becomes friends with him and almost feels sorry for him a little bit and invites him to spend the summer with him at his wealthy family's estate, which is Saltburn, a huge heap of old, beautiful English kind of estate house and kind of countryside, huge castle, if you will. It's beautiful. And after he hears that Oliver's dad has passed away, he invites him to spend the summer there. And that's pretty much the crutch of it, of the kind of plot. It's what the characters then go on to do that kind of creates the story, because throughout the summer Oliver latches onto the Cattons in what's described as an emotional, sexual and fixative way, and the result is a dark portrayal of lust and power and the lengths people are willing to go just for a taste of it. Now, the film's received many accolades, nominations for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress at the Golden Globes, and for the most part it's received very positive reviews online. But when you look on social media, it's very much divided people. Some people have described it as a Gen Z talented Mr. Ripley or Brideshead revisited with a touch of Abercrombie and Fitch aesthetics, while others see it as as depraved in a fun way with strong characters, witty one-liners, and a reflection on class, wealth, privilege, and debauchery. I'm in neither of those camps. I'm in the bit of the meh camp. As a film, it relies very much on kind of vibes and trying to shock, but I didn't feel there was any shock, nor horror, nor any real substance to hook onto. And I did feel that the talented Mr. Ripley kind of did this trope of imposter and, in higher echelons a little bit better. It did, when you talk about art forms or film or any kind of artwork, if it gets people talking, then I suppose it's done its job, really. And it did make our family, amongst us, talk about it a lot. And one side of the family loved it, and me and my partner didn't really like it that much as a movie. But it certainly stirs emotion enough to debate it. But overall, I felt it was a smidge vapid, style over substance, perhaps, and maybe it wasn't aimed at a 40-something male, and that's fine. If people like it and, the kind of faux provocation, who am I to say, really? But where it shined and where it has kind of imprinted on me and the main success of the film, was its absolutely wonderful cinematography and use of colour. One can definitely see in the lavish, sensuous sets and chiaroscuro, the kind of light and dark that in the kind of setup for these kind of little vignette moments, that Caravaggio, the artist Caravaggio, who is one of my favourite artists, has definitely influenced Fennell, the director and cinematographer Linus Sandgren, and they have said that Caravaggio played a huge part in it. And Caravaggio used colour and light and dark to create mood and kind of setting a scene. And you can see that the art isn't just a backdrop, it's an integral part of the storytelling. And the film skillfully uses art references, Caravaggio lighting, and echoes of traditional portraiture to add layers of depth and meaning to the narrative that makes maybe what the shocking kind of stuff the characters are doing, and I'm not going to mention any of them per se, but they are shocking moments to some, and I suppose they are heightened by the colours and palette and the way they're filmed, which I suppose is testament to the director and the cinematographer doing a great job. It's an experience, a cinematic experience that does feel like a living work of art, really. I mean, you can pause any frame within it, and it's beautiful, really, and it does immerse the audience somewhere between the kind of ancient past and the year 2K and when it was kind of set, and that's an interesting thing for me. I mean, I was watching it going like, this is gorgeous, and much like the Kupka with his use of yellow, I just thought throughout there was different palettes and colours used, and it just drew me in to the setting. I wanted to go and spend a summer in Saltburn. I wasn't too fussed about the characters there, but my God, did I. Almost like the Draftsman Contract movie from before, I wanted to visit the place. I wanted to kind of go there. And from the kind of blue hues in the exterior shots, where this kind of Nosferatu kind of eerie moments, I suppose, to the luscious and oppressive reds of the indoors, which are kind of to symbolise Oliver's kind of infiltration into the kind of underbelly of the family, and the kind of yellows that are used to convey those kind of long, late summer sleepy afternoons, and they're out in the long grass naked playing, and when they're sat on the chairs outside and that you can see the sweat dripping off them, it's very much conveys that kind of languid pose like Kupka does in his. He's lazing back in, bathed in gold, and there's moments in the movie that very much hark that, and it was one particular scene in particular that made me think of the Kupka painting, and this is what linked it all together. Oliver is sat outside with the mother character played by Rosamund Pike, and this is what triggered my mashup brain. Those kind of, like I said, the late summer yellows, the chair, the pompous posturing pose of Oliver, the seated position, and it all reminded me of Kupka's The Yellow Scale. And it was as the movie progressed that I started to realise, much like Kupka's work and thinking behind his colour theory, that the colours are just as important, if not more important, than the faces we see. The mood over character, perhaps, but beautiful nonetheless. And this is what kind of brought me to this painting, really. The use of colour by the director and the cinematographer was beautiful, and it shone out, and I think anyone watching it would agree. And it just stuck out as being very reminiscent of the Kupka. So as you can see now with the painting, I'm using the trace technique, which I don't use very much on Artrage, but you can bring it up. And this was to do a little, just to cut back to the painting bit rather than waffling on about the movie. This was to do the maze little Easter egg. So this is the main maze. It plays an important part in the film. This is the maze at the Saltburn mansion, And rather than try and copy that freehand, A, I couldn't really be bothered, and B, I didn't think I could get it very accurate. I brought it in as a trace, he set the opacity down, and I painted over it, still trying to keep it loose. And I wanted it to be on the book cover. Now, on Kupka's painting, there is no cover to his book. It's a mystery to what he's reading. But on my painting of Oliver there, I wanted it to be almost as if he was studying the inner workings of the family, the Catton family, and as he tries to get his fingers under them and tries to get his claws in them and tries to kind of become one of them, really. Again, no spoilers. And you can see on his silk dressing gown, I've added the kind of leaf pattern that Oliver wore to his birthday party on his Midsummer Night's Dream themed party, which obviously why the horns are there, the antlers on him as well. So these little Easter egg for the fans, but I didn't want to go overboard on the Easter eggs. I wanted to keep it quite kind of close to the original. So there's you can see the painting, the photo of Oliver there in the chair. You'll have seen it as a reference for his hair and general lighting as well. That's the moment in the film that I just thought, where have I seen that pose before? What does that remind me of? And it's the way he's kind of playing mind games with the mother, as he does with all the characters. And I just thought, that Kupka, his self-portrait, is he playing mind games with us? What's his story? What's he trying to suggest? So as we're approaching the final kind of last little steps and touch-ups of the painting, like I said before at the beginning of the video, I dried the brush out. You can see in the bottom left it's a much drier brush, and just to add a little bit of texture strokes, a little bit of roughness as if the paint's kind of ran out on the brush. And you'll see in a second as well, I kind of thought, I finished this, and I went ahead and signed it in the corner. But then, as with a lot of paintings, you kind of come back, and when you look at it on the bigger size, when you save it as a JPEG and you come back to it, I thought, no, I can still work at this. I thought the collar on the Kupka was sat slightly higher across his chin, and because Oliver's face is looking directly at us, it's not a three-quarter pose, he's very much turned. I thought we should be able to see a little bit more of his neck and less of his chin as that kind of collar rides up over it. So you'll see me touch that up again in a little moment. But overall, I really enjoyed painting this one. It's been a welcome kind of return to work after the chaos of Christmas. I've spent most of the time with the kids, so I've not really had a chance to do much work over Christmas, and it's been lovely. But my God, the weather's been atrocious in the UK here. It's been storm after storm and grey after grey. So to paint something as vibrant and lively as this, even though he has got those horrible sickly colours in his face, maybe it's kind of a reflection on me of how I've been feeling. We were ill before Christmas in the household here. There's been bugs going about, but I've been yearning for a little touch of summer coming in and the promise of what's ahead for the new year. So maybe it was on the back of my mind as well, why I chose to paint this. But I hope you've enjoyed the process and you've kind of learned a little bit about it. I didn't want it to become a complete tutorial video. I'll do more of those in the future as well. Again, it's a mashup one, but maybe I might develop the theory on the kind of color theory thing, and maybe this could be the yellow video, and maybe we'll look at other paintings in different hues and colors. So if you've got any suggestions, do let me know in the comments below, and maybe we could create a bit of a series dealing with different colors and what they mean to us. You know, it's what does yellow mean to you? I mean, in this painting, it's very much about the warmth and the kind of sunlight hitting him, but is it suggestive of cowardice? Is it suggestive of something else? We don't know, really. And I suppose that's the mystery of the painting. But thank you. Just to kind of sum up here, thank you so much again for watching these long form videos. I do enjoy making them. I hope you enjoy watching and listening to me, and it keeps you company a little bit. I'd very much appreciate if you could like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for sticking with me. It's greatly appreciated. The following numbers has gone up massively, and I'm still shocked at how this has happened so quick. But thank you and welcome to all new viewers. Like I said, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see anything in the future. And overall, go and check out more of Kupka's work. Go and watch Saltburn. Don't listen to me about my review of it. It is beautiful to watch. There's no doubting it. Is it my favourite film on earth? No. Could it have been done better? Possibly yes. But it is very, very pretty to look at. And I heartily recommend you having a view at least, just to be shocked by some of the moments maybe. So there's the final portrait of Oliver Barry Keoghan, painted as the Frantisek Kupka, the yellow scale. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.